I think Paul Stamets put it best in Fantastic Fungi. If people are burning books about a certain topic, like I want to learn about why they care so much that they're willing to burn that book. Psychedelics is definitely one of those things. When I was 13 years old, I started taking Propecia. For any of my fellow bald or balding friends listening, that is a chronic hair loss medication. Everyone in my family is bald. I was like, oh, free hair, sign me up. I'll just take this pill. I'll be good to go. Shockingly, it was not that easy. It led to some really bad mental and physical side effects. I was on that for 10 years until I was 23. Honestly, I had more hair than maybe I otherwise would have, but it didn't feel like mine because I knew I was taking this, supplement to keep it. So I wasn't even getting the confidence that I hoped having hair would give me. All of the other side effects, physical side effects, some sexual dysfunction issues, challenges in forming relationships, and just general depressive feelings, a lack of desire to really want to do anything, explore life, and do all the fun things that we're here on earth to do. It wasn't until I was 23 that I found an online community of other people taking the same drug, Propecia, and talking about their horror stories with their side effects. A lot of them resonated with me, and fortunately the worst didn't, but I knew every day I kept taking this was something that could very possibly happen to me. That gave me the motivation to quit taking the drug. A few months later, when it kind of was out of my system, I started meditating for the first time. I really credit kind of getting off of that chronic medication I was on for so long and the discovery of a meditation practice to that kind of second version of myself, where now I became interested in all of these new things. And one of those things was eventually psychedelics, because I think Paul Stamets put it best in Fantastic Fungi. If people are burning books about a certain topic, like I want to learn about why they care so much that they're willing to burn that book. Psychedelics is definitely one of those things. In my research, while preparing for my first journey, hearing the different stories that I did, and that was mostly through an internet search. So Reddit, Arrowhead, there are sites that people kind of aggregate these stories. The prevailing thoughts that come out of them, which many people may know if you are interested in this subject, is an indescribable feeling, a feeling of being connected to the universe, and that everything is going as it should be, connection to the people around you, to nature. Hearing all of those things, I'm like, well, shit, I love being in nature. I love, connecting to the people around me. This all sounds great. Like if I could have more of that, and like a deep down foundational knowledge that is the truth and the way things are, that sounds pretty cool to me. I felt that my focus would be on a couple things. One, just experiencing this new experience. It was an ayahuasca experience that is very powerful from everything I've read, which is where I get a lot of my information. I had some relationships that I was deriving a lot of stress from, and I wanted to get to the bottom of that and no longer be feeling that stress, whether it meant exploring ways to improve the relationship, having to sever those ties if needed. Whatever the medicine was going to show me, I was open to hearing. There's a few different components to kind of tie together here. I'll start with some chronic injuries that I've had. The two that are relevant to this story is a upper right shoulder pain that I've always attributed to my work life sitting at a desk and using a mouse, then a lower left rib abdominal issue that isn't necessarily a pain, but it's a discomfort, where I call it a sunken rib. I'm not fully sure that's what it is, but there's something in there that's not exactly right. And anytime I do a crunch or a sit up or sit or lie down in a certain way, my bottom rib will kind of click over my abdominal muscle, and I'll feel it kind of shift. And it's not painful, but I definitely don't love it. Those are the two injuries that'll surface in the story to come. On the more psychedelic side of things, like how I ended up going on this ayahuasca retreat, I use mushrooms fairly regularly in my mental health practice every 4 to 5 months. Essentially every season, give or take a couple months, I go out into nature or on my own. I have a mushroom experience, and that kind of helps to recalibrate my brain, give me a mental health reset, give me some time in nature away from technology, refocus on what my priorities are in relationships, work, hobbies, interests, passion, everything. Cut out anything I'm doing that isn't serving me and bring more into my life of things that are. I had open heart surgery when I was a child from a genetic birth defect. Ayahuasca is a little more strenuous on the heart than some other psychedelics, maybe not as much as ibogaine, but much more than mushrooms. So I consulted a few doctors, a few people that worked with the medicine, and got a consensus like you're good to go based on what you have. So I felt comfortable kind of checking that box and going from my experience. First night we have our ceremony Monday night. I go in with the intention of show me what you want to show me. I'm completely open to everything that might come up. I found that first night that a lot of my journey was spent thinking about my community. So I run Empathic Health, which is a psychedelic peer support integration community. I had all these ideas coming up for new events to run and ways to improve the community and bring new people in. Tuesday morning, we wake up. After breakfast, we do a integration circle where we all sit with the curandero. Her name was Lydia, and everyone that was a part of the circle that previous night for the ceremony. And we just go around and talk about things that came up, any feelings we had. And then Stace, the retreat director, owner, facilitator for the ceremonies, will check in with Lydia and say, like, what did you see during the ceremony for that person? Did anything come up on your side? Because as the curandero, she's tapped into what we're all feeling and experiencing in that Maloka. For me and one other person, she said, I want to see you guys later, like one-on-one, up in my private room. I went up, I sat on the yoga mat across from her, cross-legged, and she looked at me, smoked a mapacho, which is a more sacred plant than ayahuasca to the Shipibo tribe, is what I'm told. And she blows it over my body, kind of down from my head, around, and then she says, all right, like, what came up? And I was like, I have like this shoulder issue that came up. And she's just sitting there looking at me. And then I point at my rib. I'm like, and I have this. And she goes, yep. And like immediately knew and like pointed at the rib. She looks at Drew and Drew's like, yeah, like she found something there. Like you have a blockage, but don't worry, like she's going to get it out. I'm like, I don't believe that because I just went to the doctor a couple months ago and they told me I'm going to have this the rest of my life and the x-ray looks fine. So like, do whatever you're going to do. And like, I hope you're right, but I highly doubt it. She then massaged the area for probably about 45 minutes on Tuesday and really just like got in there and moved stuff around. And at this point, my body was pretty pliable because I'm on the ayahuasca diet for a few weeks prior. At the retreat itself, we only eat like rice, vegetables, and that's honestly pretty much it. So like 2, maybe 3 meals a day if it's not a ceremony day. And that's pretty much it. So she's getting in there and moving stuff around, but it still feels the same. I still very much feel that clicking kind of uncomfortableness. And she's like, come back tomorrow morning before breakfast. Like there's too much food in you from lunch. I can't really get in there. Next morning, I come back before breakfast. She does another 45 minutes. And at this point, it's hurting more because she's been getting in there. Rest of Wednesday, we get ready for our Wednesday night ceremony. I realized, all right, Monday was focused on my mind, like all of these ideas for the empathic community and ways to develop that. I came here in part to have a week off from, that I'm always thinking about that stuff. I want to have a week for me that's not focused on that. In the philosophy of mind, body, spirit, I want to focus on body and spirit for these other 2 ceremonies. So my intention going in Wednesday night was body or spirit, whichever one comes up. And then the third one will be on Friday night, the last night. Wednesday night was a wonderful experience. That ended up being my spirit night. And I had tons of revelations, messages come through about my family, about relationships. That was the first time the concept of intergenerational trauma made sense to me. Concept, I absolutely believe it now. I experienced it lying on my mat on that Wednesday night. I was able to visually see the trauma that my grandmother had, then my mother, and then in me. I realized it being in my rib on the left side. As I kind of played with this area that has been getting poked and prodded for the last 2 days, each time I kind of got into a sweet spot, so to speak, I would kind of have a revelation of trauma, a relationship, something in my family lineage or with myself. So that was a really profound experience to have. In the middle of the ceremony, Stace will come around and look in everyone's bucket just to see, have they purged, where are they at, a little check-in to see how their experience is going so far. About an hour and a half in, I remember throwing up what felt like a Lego sized piece of metal that I felt come up my body, and I purged into the bucket. 30 minutes later, Stace comes around. He's like, "Hey, did you purge yet?" I'm like, "Yeah, there's a little bit in there." He's like, "There's nothing in here." Like, I definitely remember feeling that come up. I heard it hit the water. And he's like, "Nope, I'm looking in here. There's nothing." I was like, wow, like I completely imagined that then, and I guess I haven't, but I vividly remember that kind of Lego piece of metal coming up from my rib area and ending up in that bucket. So that was an interesting experience that I still don't have a concrete answer for. I have some theories on kind of what that might be. That ended up being my spirit night, and I was able to physically hold the energy blockage that Drew and Lydia told me about and move it around in my rib area, and almost like I could have pulled it out of my skin if I was able to. Like I was able to like grip it in my fingers. So I'm thinking, I'm in a good mood. I'm like, all right, this is going to come out on Friday in a purge in some way. I'm either going to throw it up, I'm going to cry it out, it's going to come out the backside, whatever it's going to be, it's coming out. So I'm excited about this. And at the end of every ceremony, they bring each person around to sit on Lydia's mat, and she sings an Icaros around you, on you, to kind of clear off any energy. Monday, I was like kind of like feeling it out. I was a little uncomfortable just because it was very powerful. I didn't really know what to do with it. Wednesday, I was all about it. I was like grooving with it. I felt very in tune with it. That was a message to me that like I need to own my shit. Like I need to, like, this is my issue I'm working through. This is, all about me. Whatever this energy blockage is, I want it out, and like I'm going to do what it takes. Thursday morning, I go up. I don't even wake up Drew for translation. I'm owning this now. This is my situation. So I go up, I'm able to communicate between body language and some signs and as much Spanish as I can with Lydia, that, I felt this thing. I threw up the Lego piece. It's coming out Friday. I'm confident. And she's like, all right, like, we'll see. Good. She gets in there massaging. And then maybe 35 minutes in to this Thursday massage, she moves one of my ribs like into a location in my internal body that I had never felt anything be in before. I perked up like, oh, nuevo. I was like, that's new in Spanish. For about a second and a half, it's readjusting in that space I've never felt. And then once that's done, she takes her hands off and she's like, bien. Like, all right, good. And just looks at me, and I sit up and I move around and I do the things I know that will cause that clicking to occur. And there's no clicking. It feels like the other side, which has always been like, straight and aligned. I was like, oh, like, this is good. I think you did it. She's like, all right, yeah. Like, unsurprised. She knew the whole time that she was going to be able to do it. It was definitely a big help that I am the community manager of a peer support psychedelic integration community. The biggest kind of message takeaway that I got from my experience was break the cycle. And that's in bold, underline, capital letters in my journal. A cycle of checking my phone while I eat, watching TV and texting while I eat, doing all these things at the same time that isn't intentional and focused. Negativity compounds. So not going to the gym for a few days in a row because I didn't do it yesterday, so why bother today? And kind of macro level of that is the way society is set up today. So finding ways to break that cycle, having people to talk about it with is a great way to remind myself as often as I can to break the cycle. A metaphor I love is like sleds going down a path in the snow. It just kind of gets deeper and deeper into those grooves. And every once in a while, you need a fresh snowfall and to make some new tracks with your sled. And I think that's something that psychedelics is amazing to help with. My big takeaway was find ways to break the cycle for you, for your relationships, for your community. And that's how we can break the cycle in society. Find people. It could be on the internet. It could be a friend of a friend, people you trust that genuinely want to see you succeed and find what you're looking for, that have experience or know people that they can connect you to that have experience. And that's a great way to take a first step into your journey. The more people that tell their story, the less stigmatized it becomes, the more people you trust that are like you, that can share, this is what I do and why and how it helps me and how I got into it and how I prepare and how I integrate and what I look for when I'm going to do these things. The more knowledge you can have and the more diligence that you can, the more due diligence that you can do, that you can now safely, comfortably partake in these practices, substances, experiences that I truly 100% believe are the things that will progress us individually and in turn progress our networks and our communities, and then at large progress society and the human race to where we want it to be.